I would like to share probably one of the most famous, Rambans ala Torah, but I hope that it will give us a little bit of a different orientation to the Ramban. And for those who understand what I'm referring to, wonderful. And those who don't, we'll hopefully get there. But before we get there, we're holding in the middle of Vayikra. So in the middle of Vayikra, it's a good time to reflect back in Bereshis. And now we can have a little bit more of a objective view. Who was the greatest Av? Who was the greatest Av? Interesting game you could play. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Who was the greatest Av? The greatest person, we've spoken already many times. Moshe Rabbeinu was great, was heavyweight champion of the world. There's no question. But the greatest Av, Avram, Yitzchak, or Yaakov. So, we'll just speak out a few thoughts. One would say, Avram Avinu. He found HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He definitely was the greatest affected. Yeah, there you go. Very good. Avram Avinu, all the nisyonis that he went through. So, Avram Avinu.
They had all sons of
Yitzchak, good. Yitzchak Avinu. Also, Akedah, what could be greater? Who else in history could say that they literally stuck out their neck for God? Literally. Yaakov Avinu? I don't know. Yaakov Avinu, multiple wives. The whole mess with Lavan. Yaakov Avinu is a businessman. Pardon my French. Yaakov Avinu is probably the Baal Batishav. Probably, if we were to think about it. But yet, of course, you all know where I'm going with this, is which of the Avos was Chakuk al Kisei HaKavod, that his name or his face was engraved, was Yaakov Avinu. Who was the Bechir Sheba Avos? Was Yaakov Avinu. So why? It's a very peculiar thing. And if we were to go, we're all together in the mindset now of being Machazik or Tfilos. So we know what was Yaakov's Tfilah? Was Ma'ariv. Was a Rishus. No, Rishus. That's the greatest. So of course, by articulating these thoughts, we come to the simple realization that obviously, why was Yaakov Avinu the greatest? Why was he Chokak al Kisei HaKavod? Was specifically because he was the Av of the Rishus, of the optional, of the business, hanging out with Lavan, the Gashmias. But he took all of that, and what did he do with it? And he raised it up. He took the Rishus, he took the mundane, he took that which he did not have to do. He did not have to create a Ma'ariv. Proof is, Ma'ariv is a Rishus, Ma'ariv is optional. And yet, Yaakov Avinu was the one that took the mundane, took the spiritual, and elevated it to the level, to the point that he became the Chakuk al Kisei HaKavod, the Bechir Sheba Avos. With that slight introduction, hopefully we now could understand the famous words of the Ramban in this week's Parsha, that the Ramban famously says, Kedoshim Tiyu, that what is our job in this world? Not just to do the 613 mitzvahs. It's not enough. We have to do more than that. And I think when in our chinuch, as we've been brought up, and we've been told that the Ramban calls us sometimes by sitting and indulging in this world's pleasures, the famous words of the Ramban, the novel Bereshus HaTorah. There's a hechsher, it's kosher, but it's just indulgences, and it's just gashmias. And I think this is a Ramban that many of us have heard, and it sort of leaves a sour taste in our mouth. We hear this Ramban, and we sort of think to ourselves like, you know what? Let's worry about the important things. Let's worry about doing mitzvahs, not doing aveiros. Where does it come from? And many of us, I think, walk away from such a Ramban feeling, it's not for us. You know what, Rabbi? Let us worry about the basics. Don't start with this holiness and this precious and this not, you know what? And you know what? It's a funny thing. We're sitting here with probably more food in front of us than we do on a regular night, I assume. I don't know what goes on in your houses for dinner, but, I think this would be called, we have multiple courses going on here. You got the fish, you got the chicken, you got the kugel, you got the meat, you got it all. You got the wine. You got a ganze Shabbos Suda. So I think it's a little bit funny. So the answer is we unfortunately sometimes we look at the Ramban with a very negative outlook. We look at the Ramban as yelling at us. And maybe these are scars of our youth that we think that anytime someone is telling us to do something, it's automatically screaming at us. Not always are we being screamed at. In reality, this Ramban is the most invigorating, empowering, elevating Ramban in all of Torah. How could that be? How could that be? It sounds like the Ramban, Novel Bershus HaTorah, don't eat the chicken, have one less sushi, have one less cup of wine. It sounds very depressing. The answer is, what the Ramban is really teaching us is that at every opportunity of our life, and the Maral writes this as well in many places, but we'll say the particular place that I saw this past week, at every opportunity in life, you have a choice to make. Are you going to elevate the item in front of you? Are you going to take the cup of water, the cup of soda, the cup of wine? Are you going to elevate it that it's a reshus? It's optional. But you could elevate this item all the way ad kisei hakavod. Or are you going to eat and indulge for the pure sake of eating and indulging? And then it becomes a novel bershus HaTorah. So instead of focusing that we're being told, eat one less, don't have so much gashmias, which is true. But at the same exact dot is that what we're having, Kedoshim, do it with a matter of Kedusha. When you're having, and the example, I was thinking this past week, two people could have a cup of coffee. Two people have a cup of coffee, two people are waiting, whether it's at Starbucks, whether it's at Dunkin' Donuts, whether it's at the office coffee machine. Two people are making themselves a cup of coffee. Two people, and they take the cup of coffee, and they both go. And those two cups of coffee could have the exact diametrically opposed purposes. So one item is one guy makes a bracha and one guy doesn't. Okay, fine. Step number one. Step number two, one guy woke up and he realized he's a little groggy. He's a little bit down. And he knows that the next person that says good morning to him is not getting a good morning back. The next person that says, can you, pass me this, they're getting it over their head. He feels it sometimes, You got to know yourself. You got to know that you're in that mood. So he knows, and he says, you know what? I'm not such a coffee guy. But today we're gonna go for the coffee because I need the coffee. I need the coffee. And he goes and he gets the coffee and he drinks the coffee. It wakes him up a little bit. He goes, and he spends the extra 50 cents for some whipped cream, gives him a little smile on his face, and now the person comes and says good morning, and he has a smile on his face. And someone says, and with a smile. Whereas the other person took that cup of coffee, threw it back somewhere, kept on being grouchy, increased his grouchiness, made him more irritable, more upsetting. So the same item, and you could play this out in every single scenario in life. But the Kedoshim Tiyu, we have the opportunity in every aspect to take it and cross the line and become a novel Bershus HaTorah, which, if you think about it, is quite a dreadful boat to be in. It's a novel. It's a. I don't even know how to translate it. It's a. Anyone want to help me? It's a novel. It's an animal. It's not even. It's a carcass. It's that big roadkill that's sitting there with the flies and the bees and then the guts flying out of it and the blood still dripping off the side. With a little cat coming to lick it up on this. A novel, a gross, an ich. That's when someone says, you know what? There's a hechsher, it's kosher, and now I can just indulge for the sake of indulging until I can't indulge anymore. Or one could say, you know what? We could celebrate a chazara. We could eat for the sake of having some Torah. The proof is we don't do this every week. But now, the Olam Chazer, it wasn't easy. And Rizal Salanter actually says that Gashmias, one of the utilizations of Gashmias is to aid Ruchnias. And he writes that if someone has something that's very difficult for him, and he has something that he desires so much, he should put the two together and make a shidduch. It's very difficult for him to do a chazara. It only takes him a minute and a half every day. He just can't do it. He can't get over it. And just can't get over that roadblock to open the Gemara during the day to do the chazara. He can't do it. He has something that he loves so much. Whatever it is. I don't know if we should give examples here. Whatever it is. And it's something that he doesn't necessarily treat him to all the time. You say, oh, he loves everything and he gets it all the time. Well, so you're that Carcass. We're trying not to be that. So he loves it. So you know what he says? If for this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I push myself in a chazer, Thursday on the way home from work, I'm going to go pick myself up that sushi that I love so much. I'm going to treat myself. Now he just took that item of Gashmias that he loves, the physicality, that nothing, that lowliness, what is it? And he just elevated it to the level of Liman HaTorah, the greatest thing in the world. And this is connected to what we spoke about last Friday night, that Ein Lamala Me'oineg, Ve'en Lamata Me'nega, that the whole purpose that God created this world is for us to elevate the Gashmi to levels of Ruchni, to take the Oineg Shabbos, to take the Kiddush, to take the wine, to take the meat. Hashem pays for it. Hashem also pays for Torah. Similar credit card. I don't know which name is on it. Or you could do the opposite. You could take God's world and you could destroy it. And we know that in many parts of the world, unfortunately, they're doing a great job at destroying the world. Many, many areas. And that line, Novel Bershus HaTorah, probably should be on many buildings. And I'm not going to say what type of buildings. Everyone could use their own imagination. But remember, Novel Bershus HaTorah means there's a hechsher. There's Torah. But it's a novel. It's what are you doing? That everything is just there as a conduit for the Gashmias. Or flip it a drop. You push yourself to learn. I don't know, chazering 5 blot twice over Sukkot, Pesach, almost. It probably wasn't so easy. I think some of them did it 3 times. You pushed yourself. Yeah, there was an incentive and there was a raffle. You pushed yourself. So now you take the Gashmi and you say, you know what? I'm going to treat myself and I'm going to walk away feeling like the $1,000,000 that I am. What it means, chazering 5 blot 2 times, aside from the fact that it changed every day that you chazered it. How many people remarked, by the first Yontif, I took a Gemara with me, number 1. I opened the Gemara with me, number 2. And I actually enjoyed it, number 3. Look at that. We could have the Gashmis and the Ruchnis is all one. So now we take it and we're Mekayim the words of the Ramban. Not that we walk away saying, oh, Novel Bershus HaTorah, don't eat, don't do this, don't do that. No. Let's reorient ourselves. Let's be Mekayim, let's fulfill the words, the Kedoshim to you, realize how holy we are, find that spark of holiness in us. It ignites as we learn a little bit, and feed it with the Gashmi to keep on aiding the Ruchnias. And b'siyata d'shmaya, what's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is, of course, mitay shalei lishma balishma. The ultimate goal is one day we should enjoy the learning for the sake of the learning, and we should, when someone says, let's come and party, we'll say, okay, let's learn. What do you need the food for? Okay, halavai. It could take 120 years, but maybe we'll get there. And I think as one of our Acharei-Kedoshim coordinator just walked in, many of the real, the Kinyan Chaver that have been doing it for a long time could tell you that the truth is, deep down, it does feel better, even in this world, when they do the Chazara, when you enjoy the Gemara, when you understand what you're talking about, when you push yourself to do it. So, b'siyata d'shmaya, the bracha that we have and that we'll take out of Parshas Kedoshim. Kedoshim to you. We never should have to even think about Novel Bershus HaTorah, because you never should even contemplate stooping all the way down, but rather the opposite. We reorient ourselves. We take the Gashmias, as Yisrael Salanter has taught us, and we allow it to aid our Ruchnias. And the Maral says that's why we wash our hands before we eat. One of these 2 takanas for washing your hands, we just started learning Tilas Yadayim, anyone wants. It's a fascinating sugya. I myself am gaining incredibly from giving the shiurim on it. There's 2 reasons we wash our hands, but the bottom line is, the Maharal says that before we eat, before we put food into our animalistic bodies, we wash our hands, and we make ourselves holy. And we, aside for the bracha we make, etc., etc. So, b'siyata d'shmaya, the chizik that we're all going to take should continue pushing us. A little more chazara, a little more Torah, another black Gemara, and ultimately we'll get there. We'll get there, b'siyata d'shmaya. We'll get there, And you know what? As far as we get, it's not all or none, Chevra. Sometimes we have this all or none type of thing. That if I'm not going to become Rav Chaim Kanievsky, forget about it. I'll stick with my nevela. I'll stay my carcass on the side of the road. It's not all or none. Every little bit, one little bit that we add Kedusha to our life, one dot more of Torah, one dot less of Gashmis for the sake of Gashmi, but rather a piece of kugel to help me learn a little bit. A cup of coffee to clear my mind before I daven, a drink so I could be able to focus. And Mir Hashem, we will get there all together. Shkoyach.